What's up, my D&D family? Today I have a build for you, the Shadow Mage. Now, I've gone on record saying that I think the Twilight Domain Cleric is pretty overtuned, and I usually don't love using overtuned subclasses in my build just because it feels like they're used so often. However, if I can see a way to use them in a unique way that most people aren't using them, that's something I want to take a look at. So what I wanted to do with the Twilight Domain Cleric is they have the ability to create dim light around them no matter what the light setting is. Doesn't matter if you're in complete darkness or if you're in complete light, they create dim light and an aura around them. And I wanted to use that dim light to our advantage, and that's what this build is all about. In order to pull this build off, we're going to go 2 levels into Twilight Domain Cleric and 18 levels into Bladesinger Wizard. As for our stats, we're going to have a Dex and Intelligence as our primary and then Constitution as our secondary, but we need to be sure to pick up 13 in Wisdom to be able to multi-class outside of Cleric. As for our lineage, I want to be a High Elf. High Elf is perfect for our stats. It's going to give us an extra cantrip, which we'll likely use for utility, and it's going to allow us to pick up the Elven Accuracy feat. Because we're picking up the Elven Accuracy feat, we're going to want to make sure that we have one of our stats as an odd so that we can round it out. Now, we're going to be fine up until level 5. We're a Twilight Domain Cleric, our Channel Divinity is super powerful. We can get on by with basically just that, and then we're going to be going into a Bladesinger Wizard, which is a very powerful subclass, so we're going to be just fine, but our synergies really begin at level 5. That's because we have 2 levels into Cleric and 3 levels into Wizard. So we can pick up Shadow Blade. So Shadow Blade allows us to attack at advantage while we're in dim light, which we can now create at will. So our first turn might look like action, set up Channel Divinity, bonus action, start our Blade Song. Our second turn might be bonus action, Shadow Blade, and then action, get to schmacking people. Once we hit level 6, we're going to pick up the Elven Accuracy feat, meaning whenever we attack at advantage, we get to roll 3 dice instead of 2, and we're going to be attacking at advantage all the time when we get the setup going. This is a gnarly setup. Not only do we have Blade Song going, which is going to give us its crazy buffs, including a massive amount of AC, we're also going to be getting turn-by-turn temporary HP, so our defenses are fantastic. All the while, we're getting to attack at super advantage with a 2d8 weapon, so our offense is also fantastic. It's a really gnarly setup, and it only takes 1 turn of setting up. As we continue leveling up into Bladesinger, we're going to pick up Summon Shadowspawn. Summon Shadowspawn has a fear option, which gives us a Shadowspawn who can take the hide action as a bonus action if they're in dim light or darkness. So this allows us to have this creature that kind of flows in and out of our aura. I really love the imagery of this. We have the shadow creature that bounces out of our aura, attacks someone, first attack at advantage because they were hidden. If they have multiple attacks and they finish up their attacks, then they go back into the aura and hide. I really love this, just mostly for the imagery. I love the image of us being this kind of evil looking shadow sorcerer who has the shadow mass around us, and from it comes this entity that's kind of weaving in and out. The nice part about this is that it has its own attacks, so we have our own attacks. And what's cool about the Bladesinger is that we can use a hand crossbow, so sometimes our combo might look like us hand crossbow, Ray of Frost, or Firebolt. I prefer Ray of Frost for this build. Then our Shadowspawn pops out of the shadows, attacks someone, and pops back into it. Or if we want to go up close, we can be using a Rapier, and then we can do something like Booming Blade, and then a normal attack, followed up by our Shadowspawn from there. Keep in mind, if we're using the Shadowspawn combo, it's going to take 1 action to set up our aura, and then a second action to summon the Shadowspawn, so we're actually not making attacks until the 3rd turn. So that might turn some people off to that strategy, but the imagery is just too good for me not to explore a bit. A little bit more synergy there is our Shadowspawn counts as an ally, so it's also getting the healing from our aura, so it'll be a little bit tankier. There's a little bit of anti-synergy in that our summon isn't actually tanking for us. It's trying to hide and they get these advantage attacks. So you could go a different summon, different Shadowspawn, and it might be a little bit better. I just wanted to explore the Fear Shadowspawn because it's not used often in comparison to Despair Shadowspawn, for example. So that's the core of the build, but let's talk about some extra details. Both Shadowspawn and Shadow Blade, they scale at even levels. So we're going to be wanting to use our 2nd, 4th, and 6th level spell slots to focus on those spells, which leaves our 1st and 3rd and 5th level spell slots to do whatever we want with. This is perfect for our 1st level spell slots being spammables. Silvery Barbs comes to mind, Shield comes to mind, but also lets us have fight winning spells, 3rd level fight winning spells on the fights we don't want to use these combos because we can't use them every single fight. So Hypnotic Pattern, Fireball, Major Image, those spells come to mind to take care of those other fights. When it comes to the flavor of this character, I would focus a ton on shadow magic. If I'm casting Shield, it's not just this arcane arcane barrier? No, it's shadows themselves coming to block an attack. When we summon our familiar, instead of it just looking like a normal owl, it might be a shadow owl. I'd have fun with that. This is definitely a character that could be used as a good guy, but pretty easily as a bad guy too. Just the imagery of this shadow auraed villain who has these creatures that bounce in and out of its shadow is really cool imagery to me, something to think about. As for the question of the day today, what I would love to hear from you guys is, what are you excited for? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to support the channel as well as get some awesome benefits along the way, consider checking out our Patreon. But with that, my friends, I hope you have yourselves an incredible day, and I'll catch you on the next one. See you then.